Ever lie awake at night, mind racing with questions no one seems to have the answers to? What is consciousness? Is there a higher power? Can we trust our own thoughts? Welcome to Sleepless Minds, where science, philosophy, psychology, and religion collide in a deep dive into the unknown. But here's the catch: the more you know, the less you sleep. We break down the biggest questions in human history without the fluff, without the bias, just raw ideas and mind-expanding debates. So if you love thinking so deeply it hurts, hit like to keep your brain engaged, and subscribe before your mind drifts back into the ordinary. Because once you start questioning everything, you'll never see the world the same way again. Welcome to Sleepless Minds. Let's begin. The nature of science: a self-correcting system. One of the fundamental strengths of science is that it self-corrects over time. Unlike rigid belief systems that rely on fixed truths, science is designed to evolve as new evidence emerges. This means that while scientific knowledge is never absolutely final, it becomes more accurate and reliable through ongoing testing, refinement, and correction of past mistakes. Science as a process, not a fixed set of truths. Many people think of science as a collection of facts, but in reality, it is a method for discovering knowledge. The scientific process follows these key steps. Observation: scientists observe a phenomenon and ask a question. Hypothesis formation: they propose a possible explanation based on existing knowledge. Experimentation: they test the hypothesis through experiments and data collection. Analysis and peer review: other scientists evaluate the findings to check for accuracy. Repetition and refinement: over time, further testing strengthens or disproves previous conclusions. Unlike dogma, science doesn't claim to be infallible, it actively looks for errors and refines itself. Scientific knowledge evolves over time. Because science is based on evidence, it changes when new, better evidence becomes available. This process of refinement makes science more reliable, not less. However, many people see these changes as inconsistency or weakness, when in reality, they demonstrate progress. The shifting understanding of ulcers. Old belief, pre-1980s, doctors believed stomach ulcers were caused by stress and diet. New discovery. In 1982, researchers Barry Marshall and Robin Warren discovered that most ulcers are caused by the bacterium Helicobacter pylori. Result: the medical community shifted from prescribing stress management to using antibiotics to treat ulcers. Here, science corrected itself based on new evidence, leading to better treatments and improved health outcomes. Newton versus Einstein versus quantum physics. Isaac Newton's laws, 1687, explained motion and gravity, but couldn't account for extreme conditions, for example, near light speed. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, 1915, improved our understanding of space, time, and gravity, but didn't fully explain quantum behavior. Quantum mechanics, 20th century present, describes behavior at atomic level, challenging parts of classical physics. Each step built upon and corrected previous knowledge, leading to a deeper, more accurate understanding of reality. The role of peer review and reproducibility. Science avoids permanent mistakes through peer review and replication of experiments. Peer review process. When scientists conduct research, their work must be reviewed by independent experts before publication. This filters out errors, bias, and poor methodology before findings are accepted. If flaws are found, the study is revised, retracted, or debated. Replication of studies. Other scientists repeat experiments to see if they get the same results. If results cannot be reproduced, the original findings may be questioned or discarded. Example: in psychology, the replication crisis emerged when many famous studies, for example, power poses, priming effects, failed to be replicated. This forced researchers to reevaluate methods and improve standards, strengthening the field in the long run. Science can make mistakes, but it fixes them. Because science is conducted by humans, errors, biases, and even fraud sometimes occur. However, unlike other systems, science has built-in mechanisms to correct mistakes. Self-correction in medicine. Bloodletting was once a standard medical practice but was abandoned when evidence showed it was harmful. The food pyramid, 1992, overemphasized carbohydrates, leading to obesity concerns. Newer models like MyPlate, 2011, improved dietary recommendations. Self-correction in astronomy. Geocentrism, Earth as center of the universe, was the dominant belief for centuries, but evidence from Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler led to the heliocentric model. Self-correction in biology. Scientists once believed spontaneous generation, living things arising from non-living matter, was real. Louis Pasteur's experiments in the 1930s disproved this, leading to germ theory. Every time science replaces an old idea with a better one, it demonstrates its ability to self-correct rather than stubbornly holding on to outdated beliefs. Why people struggle with self-correcting science. Many people distrust science because they expect it to provide absolute certainty. When scientific conclusions change, they assume it means science is unreliable. However, changing conclusions are a sign that science is working as intended. Common misconceptions. Scientists keep changing their minds, so we can't trust them. Truth. Science doesn't change its mind randomly. It refines knowledge based on new evidence. If science was wrong before, it could be wrong again. Truth. Yes, but science today is based on more rigorous methods, reducing the chance of error. There's no such thing as settled science. Truth. Some scientific concepts, for example gravity, DNA as genetic material, are so well tested that they are highly unlikely to change. Why the self-correcting nature of science is its greatest strength. It allows progress. The reason we have modern medicine, technology, and space travel is that science keeps refining itself. If scientists never admitted past mistakes, we'd still be using leeches to treat diseases. It filters out false information. While misinformation and bad science exist, the process of peer review, replication, and self-correction ensures that only the best supported theories survive. It is the best system for understanding reality. No other system, politics, religion, philosophy, has a built-in method for detecting and correcting its own mistakes. This is why science remains our most powerful tool for discovering objective truth. Final thought. Science is imperfect, but it works. Science is not flawless. It makes mistakes, faces biases, and evolves over time. However, its ability to self-correct makes it the most reliable way to understand the world. Science is not about being right all the time, it's about getting closer to the truth through constant improvement. Conflicting studies and bias in science. One of the biggest challenges in trusting science is dealing with conflicting studies when different research findings seem to contradict each other. This creates confusion, fuels skepticism, and makes it easier for misinformation to spread. However, these contradictions don't mean science is broken. Instead, they highlight the complexities of research and the presence of biases that influence scientific studies. This deep dive will explore why studies conflict, types of bias in scientific research, how to identify trustworthy studies, real-world examples of conflicting studies and bias, why do scientific studies conflict? Conflicting studies happen because science is an evolving process. There are many reasons why different studies might reach different conclusions, including differences in study design. Studies can vary in sample size, methodology, and controls, leading to different results. Observational versus experimental studies. Observational studies find correlations but can't prove causation. Experimental studies, clinical trials, are more reliable but harder to conduct. Example: some studies suggest drinking wine is good for heart health, while others find no benefit. The difference? Observational studies show wine drinkers live longer, but this may be because they also exercise and eat well. Controlled trials don't show the same benefits when those factors are removed. B. Small sample sizes and statistical flukes. Small studies may show random variations that don't hold up in larger research. The smaller the sample, the greater the risk of false positives or false negatives. Example: a small study may find that eating a certain food reduces cancer risk, but when tested on thousands of people, the effect disappears. C. Publication bias. The file drawer problem. Journals prefer publishing exciting, positive results over negative or inconclusive ones. As a result, if 10 studies are conducted on a topic, but only the one with a dramatic finding gets published, the public gets a distorted view of reality. Example: if 9 out of 10 studies show a new drug doesn't work, but only the one positive study is published, people might believe the drug is effective. D. Conflicts of interest and funding bias. Studies funded by corporations, governments, or advocacy groups may have built-in biases. Researchers may unintentionally or deliberately favor outcomes that benefit funders. Example: tobacco companies funded studies in the 1950s to claim smoking was harmless. Pharmaceutical companies may design studies that highlight a drug's benefits while downplaying side effects. E. Differences in data interpretation. Even when using the same data, researchers may interpret results differently based on their perspectives or biases. Statistical methods can be manipulated to make findings seem more significant than they are. Example: a study may show that a new diet leads to weight loss, but the weight loss could be only 0.5 pounds over 6 months, which is not meaningful in real life. F. Evolving scientific understanding. Science updates its knowledge as new research emerges, which may contradict older studies. This doesn't mean past studies were wrong, just that they were incomplete. Example: fat versus carbs debate. In the 1970s, fat was blamed for heart disease. In the 2000s, studies showed sugar and processed carbs were bigger culprits. This shift wasn't a failure, it was science refining its understanding. Types of bias in scientific research. Bias can creep into scientific studies in multiple ways. Here are the most common types. A. Selection bias. Occurs when the sample isn't representative of the larger population. Example: a drug trial only includes young, healthy men, but the drug is later prescribed to elderly women who experience unexpected side effects. B.C. Confirmation bias. Researchers tend to look for evidence that supports their beliefs while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. Example: a psychologist studying meditation may unconsciously favor results that show its benefits while dismissing studies that don't. C. Reporting bias. Positive or dramatic results are more likely to be reported, while negative or boring results are ignored. Example: a weight loss supplement company may promote one study showing success, but ignore 10 other studies showing no effect. D. Funding bias. When a study's conclusions favor the interests of the funding source. Example: drug companies funding research on their own medications often report more positive results than independent studies. E. Observer bias. The researcher's expectations affect how they record and interpret results. Example: a doctor in a clinical trial expects a drug to work and unconsciously interprets patient symptoms as improving. F. Attrition bias. Happens when participants drop out of a study, affecting the results. Example: in a year-long diet study, only those who successfully lose weight stay, while those who struggle drop out, making the diet seem more effective than it actually is. How to identify trustworthy studies. To avoid being misled by conflicting studies, look for large sample size. The larger the study, the more reliable the results. Randomized controlled trials, RCTs, the gold standard in research, where subjects are randomly assigned to treatment or placebo group. Meta-analyses and systematic reviews, studies that combine results from many studies to find overall trends. Independent replication. If multiple independent studies reach the same conclusion, the finding is stronger. No conflicts of interest. Be wary of research funded by organizations that could benefit from specific results. Real-world examples of conflicting studies and bias. The egg debate. Are eggs healthy or harmful? 1970s to 1990s. Eggs were demonized for their cholesterol content. 2000s present. Studies show dietary cholesterol has little impact on blood cholesterol for most people. Reason for conflict. Early studies failed to account for other lifestyle factors. For example, people who ate eggs also ate bacon and processed foods. Does red wine help your heart? Some studies say yes, others say no. The French paradox, low heart disease despite high-fat diet, led to theories about resveratrol in wine. However, Later studies showed the benefits may come from lifestyle factors rather than wine itself. C. Cell phones and cancer. Some studies claim cell phone radiation causes cancer, while others find no link. Why the conflict? Some studies rely on self-reported phone use, which is unreliable. Some have funding biases, telecom companies versus advocacy groups. Long-term effects are hard to study, making results inconclusive. Final thoughts. Should conflicting studies make us distrust science? No, they show science in action. Conflicting studies don't mean science is unreliable, they mean it's still searching for the truth. Be skeptical, but not cynical. Look at the weight of evidence, not just one study. Science self-corrects. Over time, bad studies get weeded out and reliable findings emerge. The double-edged sword of skepticism. Skepticism is one of the most powerful tools in critical thinking. It helps us question claims, avoid deception, and demand evidence before accepting something as true. However, skepticism is a double-edged sword. When used correctly, it leads to scientific progress and informed decision-making. But when taken to the extreme, it can result in denialism, conspiracy thinking, and paralysis of action. This deep dive will explore the role of skepticism in science and society, healthy versus unhealthy skepticism, how skepticism can be manipulated, real-world examples of skepticism gone right and wrong. 1. The role of skepticism in science and society. Skepticism is essential for scientific progress. Without it, people would accept false claims without question, leading to pseudoscience, misinformation, and manipulation. Science itself is built on skepticism. It challenges existing ideas, demands rigorous testing, and updates its conclusions when new evidence arises. Skepticism's role in science. Scientists don't accept claims at face value. They require proof through experiments, peer review, and replication. Without skepticism, we might still believe in flat earth theories, bloodletting as medicine, and astrology as science. Skepticism's role in society. It protects us from fraud, propaganda, and misinformation. It encourages critical thinking in politics, media, and everyday decisions. It allows us to question authority and challenge dogma, leading to social progress. Example of healthy skepticism in science. Scientists question spontaneous generation, the idea that life arises from non-living matter. Louis Pasteur's experiments debunked it, leading to the germ theory of disease, one of the most important breakthroughs in medical history. 2. Healthy versus unhealthy skepticism. Healthy skepticism. Constructive, evidence-based. Open to changing beliefs when presented with strong evidence. Asks critical questions but also considers expert consensus. Differentiates between legitimate uncertainty and baseless doubt. Seeks to understand complexities rather than just reject claims. Example: a person skeptical of a new medical treatment does research, looks at peer-reviewed studies, and consults experts before forming an opinion. Unhealthy skepticism. Destructive, dismissive. Rejects evidence that contradicts pre-existing beliefs. Moves the goalposts. No amount of proof is good enough. Relies on distrust and doubt rather than reason and evidence. Can lead to denialism and conspiracy thinking. Example: a person dismisses all scientific evidence about climate change, saying, "Scientists have been wrong before, so they could be wrong now." 3. How skepticism can be manipulated. Skepticism is powerful, but it can be weaponized by people who want to spread doubt for personal, political, or financial gain. Many industries and interest groups exploit skepticism to keep people uncertain and delay action. A. The manufacturing doubt tactic. Some corporations and lobbyists exploit skepticism to protect their interests by making the public question well-established science. Examples: Big Tobacco, 1950s to 1990s, funded studies to create doubt about smoking's health risks, even after strong evidence linked it to cancer. Fossil fuel industry, 1990s present, spreads uncertainty about climate change to delay regulations. Pharmaceutical companies fund conflicting studies to make certain drugs seem safer than they are. Why it works? People assume scientific uncertainty equals no consensus. If people stay skeptical forever, they never take action. B. Skepticism versus denialism. Knowing the difference. Skepticism equals questioning things reasonably and accepting evidence when it's strong. Denialism equals rejecting evidence no matter how strong it is. Healthy skepticism. Denialism. Is this claim backed by evidence? I refuse to believe this claim no matter what. Open to changing views. Stubbornly holds on to beliefs. Uses peer-reviewed research. Cherry-picks weak studies or anecdotes. Looks at expert consensus. Thinks all experts are corrupt or lying. Accepts uncertainty, but follows the best available data. Expects absolute proof, which is impossible. Example: skeptic. I want to see multiple independent studies before I believe this new drug is effective. Denialist. I don't trust any studies. Scientists are all bought off by big pharma. Denialism often disguises itself as skepticism, but it is actually just refusing to accept evidence. 4. Real-world examples. Skepticism used for good versus bad. Good skepticism. The fight against pseudoscience. The anti-vaccine movement was based on a fraudulent study by Andrew Wakefield in 1998, linking vaccines to autism. Skeptical scientists debunked the claim through multiple studies. Thanks to skepticism, we now know that vaccines are safe and do not cause autism. Bad skepticism. Climate change denial. Despite overwhelming scientific consensus, many still claim climate change isn't real. Why? They say, scientists were wrong about global cooling in the 1970s. Cherry-picking. They claim, CO2 is natural, so it can't be harmful. Misleading argument. This misuse of skepticism delays climate action, leading to worsening environmental damage. Final thoughts. How to use skepticism wisely. Skepticism is a tool, not a belief system. Use it to seek truth, not to reject everything. Be open to changing your mind. True skeptics adjust their views as new evidence emerges. Differentiate between legitimate uncertainty and manufactured doubt. Just because some details aren't known doesn't mean the entire claim is false. Trust evidence, not feelings. If the best evidence supports a conclusion, accept it even if it's inconvenient. Key takeaway. Healthy skepticism leads to progress. Unhealthy skepticism can lead to paralysis, denialism, and misinformation. The challenge is to stay curious and critical, but not cynical.